asking people how they're doing and start asking people how they're feeling.
So I gotta make sure I'm watching the news.
God will never waste pain that's offered to him. Nothing is ever wasted.
Everybody that I gotta play the week gon' be straight. And that we tie that red that you won't hit, so you better not be late.
This is a place of development, and I'm not gonna die here.
Cause I love it, I don't care about the fame.
Yo, welcome to the Young Vagabond podcast, man, where we navigate the journey of life together through truth and love. I'm your co-host, Bryson.
And I'm your co-host, DJ.
And this is season 3, episode 6 with the Vagabonds in the mix. You feel me?
Oh, you feel me?
You feel me?
Man, it's good to be back, man. We haven't recorded in a month, actually. So all the episodes y'all been getting have been recorded in pretty much all in February, right?
In March a little bit.
Well, we had one in March. So
yeah,
we finally back. So forgive us if we're a little bit rusty, a little bit crusty, never dusty.
Uh-oh.
And definitely not lusty because we love Jesus.
You feel me?
You know what I'm saying?
Preachy,
man. Before we get started, of course, I got to remind y'all, even though the internet not working, so I'm going to have to do this off rip, that if you're watching on YouTube, to please subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, to follow. Man, we appreciate it. We want y'all to go down to the links in that description. We want you to click it, and we want y'all to follow, like, do all the things that we know that y'all doing. We are currently at 699 followers on Instagram, so we can just get that up one more. That'd be 700. 700 followers. Let's do it, man. Although, hopefully, by the time this episode comes out, that will actually already be done. That is what I'm hoping. But anyways, yes, please like and subscribe. Do all of those things. If you want to support us, the Cashapp is always down there. Right now, we're working on the store, so it's not up currently, but we'll maybe having some other things that you'll be able to purchase coming out pretty soon. So just keep in mind of that. Of course, we got to shout out our man, Travis, who's behind the screen. We appreciate you so much and everything that you do. And of course, if the content speaks to you, leave us a comment. If you think it'll speak to someone else, share it. If you could go on our Instagram, please share our posts. Do all of the things. We appreciate each and every one of y'all, the Young Vagabond fam, the Give-a-bonds, the donate-a-bonds, the watch-a-bonds. We appreciate every single one of y'all, man.
For real.
Special episode today.
Watch-a-bonds.
We got somebody here who is an amazing young man of God from Olive Branch, Mississippi. One of the, it's not OB?
Nah.
Which one is it?
Nesbitt,
Mississippi.
It's the cooler part of Olive Branch.
The cooler part of Olive Branch. All my homies hate OB. Just kidding.
Hey, if you're from OB,
we don't rock with you, bro.
Consider yourself an op.
Exactly. You're an op, young Vagabond. But anyways, Norbit, the greatest place.
Okay,
y'all heard of Norbit?
Yeah.
Y'all know about Norbit?
Just a movie.
Yeah, shout out Norbit. Anyways, Nesby, whatever. Anyways, from there, also from Missouri, from all over, man.
Yeah.
Man is just an international guy.
Actually.
International.
Spent some of my time
player.
overseas,
touring, doing things.
military
that
lifestyle.
You're just not built for. This man is him. Current vice president of Penthouse Fellowship Group. Presidential scholar. Man, just all of these amazing things. Can we give it up for Mr. Cole?
It's a pleasure.
How you feeling, Cole?
I'm feeling great. It's a pleasure to be on here.
Yeah, man.
I'm been looking forward to this.
Yeah.
After we had to cancel the last recording session. That's my bad.
Hey, man. Hey, that's just because we had to get the sauce ready. There was so much sauce that we lost some of the sauce. So
wasn't the freshman flu or anything like that.
No, definitely not.
That would have been so crazy.
That would have been
had that
stupid.
been
You'd have been a loser.
I would have if I was just sick. I need to get over myself if I was just sick, honestly.
Be healthy. Skill issue.
Yeah.
But anyways, man, happy to have you here, Cole. I was going to say your last name, but I was not confident in it. What's your last name? If you want to put that on the pod.
Do you wanna? Have you said it before?
Sereika?
Yeah, you got it.
Dude, let's go.
Yeah. All the vowels are in the wrong spot, so it's
Okay.
kind of no one's gonna be able to find it anyway. They can't.
Yeah.
They don't know how to spell
Yeah,
Sereika.
'cause-
You don't.
That one was a guess. Thank you, Lord, that worked out.
Thank you, Lord.
For the change ways, Emmanuel the prophet. Anyways,
Jesus Christ.
well, Cole, man, why don't you give the people here who are listening a short introduction into who you are and what brought you here, so we can get to know you just a little bit, man.
So I'm a freshman. From Nesbitt, Mississippi, very top, but I currently live in Springfield, Missouri. I am finishing out freshman year now. I think I said that already. I am a leukemia survivor. Military brat. I don't know, man.
What's your major?
I'm a marketing major.
Hey,
Please
bro.
don't judge me.
No,
Please
bro.
don't judge.
Stand on your stuff, my brother. Marketing majors unites. All right?
I'm here at Mississippi State off of the abundance of God's provision alone. That's it. Like that's the only answer I have for that. It's kind of a crazy story, but got a full ride off of an essay I wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
It's a
that's what's
blessing.
up, man. No, I'm excited for this episode. To give you some background, I met Cole when we were moving in, because where I currently work as a resident advisor, I just happened to be outside talking to my residents while he was walking the hall, and we just bumped into each other, and from there sprouted up a relationship that has brought us to this moment. And so talking about the abundance of God, just even in that random happenstance that I happened to be outside the exact same time he was walking out there, and us building relationship and seeing now how that has blossomed to where we're here today, it is very, very dope. And so I'm super excited for this episode and to just dive into what, we're going to talk about and see where, just the Lord leads the wisdom that comes from this conversation. And so y'all know how we do it. First, of course, we got to start off with favorite conversation of the week. And it's not Tuesday, we're recording on a Thursday, so you'll have even more time to have thought about this. So hopefully you guys have something. And it's been a whole month, so you can really go back on the whole month and just pick a conversation that you had. So who wants to go first?
Dang, bro. Why y'all do this?
Okay, I'll go first. Anyway.
I'm ready, but like it happen every time, bro.
Well, I mean, that's just how it is. Because you're the best. So you got to go first. First
man.
go best.
This man.
Best or first.
All right. So what was your favorite conversation, DJ?
Yeah, man. My favorite conversation this week. I mean, look, I've had many. When I got taken to the airport by Cole, that was a pretty awesome conversation, but I'm pretty sure we'll dive into that a bit later. My uncle called me yesterday because yesterday was my birthday, which hey, happy birthday, DJ. But,
20.
20 years old, man. So we talked, and he has just gotten a new position in his company, and he's kind of having to, even though it was a position that has already existed for a while, he's kind of having to build from the ground up, as a lot of the team that was in that department moved with the leadership change that had happened. And so he was blessed with the opportunity to take on that position, but with that came new challenges and new difficulties. And he was just talking about how when you step out in faith, how God can and will bless that. And it's going to be hard. I think sometimes when we think about steps of faith, we equate that with immediate success. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you're going to take a step of faith and you're going to have to work really hard. It's not either or. Like step of faith, continuing to grind, and then comes the blessing. Sometimes the blessing is immediately after the step of faith, but that's not always the case. And so just hearing his story and how he's still he had to put in work, man. He said working bell to bell every day, but how God has blessed that, the experience he's gained from that, and how now things are starting to stabilize and work more together. And him just talking about how he saw the provision of God through that whole process. That was a really dope conversation that I had with him. And so that's probably what I would say is one of my favorite conversations over the past month, but definitely for this past week. Who wants to go next?
All right, bro. So actually, I was talking to my girl about this. Like, I ain't have no conversation prepared, but the Lord answered my prayer like right before I came back to campus. So my truck was in the shop, and my pops was working in Columbus at the Baptist hospital. And then he called me. He was like, yo, I'm finna come to Starkville so we can go get your truck or whatever. Can you get somebody to take you? So I was like, yeah, I'll call somebody. So I call my girl. She takes me to the shop, see my dad. My dad's a goofball, so he dancing, doing his little thing. We vibing out. And it was like, yo, let's go catch lunch, right? So we go catch lunch, and man, like that conversation was a godsend for real. Like, but before we even like chopped it up, we were able to meet Jet Johnson, like one of the best linebackers in the SEC, bro. Like, man, biggest freak. He played for Mississippi State, number 44.
Yeah, where'd you meet him?
Chipotle.
Oh,
Just randomly?
Yeah.
he was in the Chipotle?
Yeah.
No
Dude,
way.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought the other day I was out somewhere and I thought I saw him and I was like, "There's no way he's like just walking around Starkville."
That was probably him. That man buff is a mug, dude.
Yes, bro. He's huge.
He's so humble and down to earth, like cool dude. Hey, if he ever see this Jet, you a cool dude, bro. Yeah. But so met him. Then like we sat down, me, my girl, and my dad. And bro, like I said, conversation was a godsend because like last night in my quiet time, I was like crying out to the Lord, just like about my future, trying to trust him and things of that nature. And I read Joshua 1 and verses 6-9 just kept hitting me. Like God told Joshua, be bold and courageous 3 times in 4 verses, right? And then also he told him like he was going to be the one to distribute the land of their ancestors. So essentially like he was going to be the one that succeeded, although the ancestors failed. And it just kind of like spoke to me and resonated with me because like, having the things that are a part of my testimony, you know what I'm saying? Like seeing broken relationships around me sometimes when I was growing up, knowing that like, you know what, I can be bold and courageous, knowing that I won't be a repeat situation, that the Lord is with me. And man, it just really spoke to me. And then my dad just came, like I said, God sent, bro, like spoke life to me, bro. Like such an amazing moment, such a conversation of true vulnerability, like in the middle of a Chipotle, man. And I love my pops, bro. Like that shifted. Cause like he said, bro, he said it himself, he was like, you can't make this stuff up. Like this was God oriented because he just so happened to be working in Columbus the same day my truck get fixed. He comes, meets me at the shop, and like I just so happened to have like an off day. My schoolwork was done and all of that. And it's like, it was so needed, bro. Like it was just beautiful moment. A beautiful moment, man. Like I can't thank God enough for that. For real.
That's dope. I'd say for me, it's kind of a shorter one, but my favorite conversation, I feel like it's a conversation I've had with my doctors. I had checkups. They were my 4-year off of chemo checkups.
Hey,
and it was Friday or Thursday, Friday. I had them last week. And I've had bad bones because of the chemo since like 2017, basically. And I've been waiting patiently for them to heal. And I finally got the report that they're pretty much back to normal.
Let's go.
And so that moment of like, there's a huge sigh of relief of just being like, whew, because the thing is, dude, they did 2 separate scans to look at the bones. One of them said, yeah, no, not good. And the other one was like, oh yeah, you're perfectly fine. And I got my results before my doctors did because of my hospital's app. And so when I went into the doctors, they were just like talking to me. And I was like, I need clarification, like quick. Like, which one of these numbers do I need to be looking at? And they're like, oh no, the second one. Yeah, you're all good. And I was like, it was, oh my gosh. I can now get back into normal life type stuff. I can get back into sports, stuff like that.
Right.
Haven't been able to do it in 7 years.
Dang, bro.
Yeah.
Dang, that's powerful.
But it was awesome. It was a really good conversation. I had a lot of conversations with like new doctors because I hadn't been there in 2 years. It was like a lot of new faces, and so I got to talk to them, you know, a little bit about my story and everything like that, and they all it was really cool. It was really cool.
That's what's up.
No, I mean, hey, congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
wonderful. And I actually want to take some time to kind of dive into that story that you kind of alluded to when you talked about in your introduction, which was, you know, your battle with leukemia, and just kind of how, just like start taking us through that journey. And we're going to do kind of like how Tim Ross does it, may interrupt you because there may be something that me or Bryson may want to point out or get more clarification on, but I just want to give you a chance, man, just to start sharing your story.
Okay. So we moved to Nesbitt, Mississippi in 2017 so we moved in there in July, like 3 months later. So we moved into this house. 3 months later, I was just feeling like crap. I was nearly 13. And so we figured it was like, oh, you know, it's just growing pains. There's like a weird pain in my bones. It finally got to the point where it was just so constant. My mom was like, I'm bringing you to the doctor. This is just something weird.
Right.
We show up and the doctor's like, yeah, we're looking like all the symptoms you're describing. Pretty sure it's like either diabetes or mono. And we were like, dang, like diabetes, that's terrible. That's like, that's awful. They draw blood. And then like 20, 30 minutes later, the nurse comes back in. She goes, hey, sweetie, we didn't draw enough blood. We need to get some more blood from you. And immediately, like the alarm bells in me and my mom's head while we were sitting there, because nurses don't just not take enough blood. That's not a thing that happens. Yeah. They just want more to confirm their suspicions. Yeah. And I was already like, I was 13, but I was aware enough to be like, oh, that's not good. Yeah. Then about 20 minutes later, I feel like after that, they came in, took my mom out of the room, told her they suspected it was leukemia. And she came back in and told me, and I initially was very panicked. It was like, it's kind of a hard feeling. Right? My heart's racing right now, even just thinking about it. Yeah. But it was pretty like I felt like my world was collapsing around me. That's the best way I can describe it, because everything, when you're young, you're like, you hear cancer, you're like, oh, like that kills people, like, and that's like something you see in like those movies that they use as a point to be sad, sort of thing. Yeah. And so that was immediately what came in my head, and I just started freaking out. And then I was like sobbing for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then like literally, like a wave of calmness came over me, and I was like, okay, yeah, it's gonna be fine. And it was like I was 100% the Holy Spirit. And even my mom was
Did
like,
you like know that at the time that was the Holy Spirit?
Yeah. I was raised in a pretty like faith-filled household, and that like my story with leukemia definitely strengthened my faith quite a bit. Yeah. Because again, as a 13-year-old, you're not really thinking about like like those super deep stuff with faith at that time. Yeah. But we were sitting there, and my mom was still like kind of crying, and she was like what? And I was like, yeah, like it's gonna be okay. Like, let's just go. And then the doctor came in. She was like, hey, this is what we think you have. We're sending you to, you guys probably know it, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Because where we lived was within a radius that you automatically got sent there if you had cancer as a child. You're diagnosed within that little area, you're basically automatically sent to St. Jude. And St. Jude is the #1 childhood cancer hospital in the world, bar none. Like, it's not even close. Yeah. Part of their thing that they're known for is they never bill the families. Like, the families, like, we didn't have to pay a dime for my treatment. And it was really, again, the timing of it all. There are details like the house that we bought. So there's, I think it's a 30-mile radius around St. Jude. The house that we bought was 2 miles inside of that radius. The house that my parents put an offer in before that was 2 miles outside of that radius.
Sheesh.
So had I not been inside that radius, my whole story would be completely different. The house that we did end up buying it was like the show house for the neighborhood, so it had extra wide hallways, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And my mom noticed it when we bought the house. I was like, this is kind of stupid. Like, why do you need these wide hallways? But that ended up allowing me at certain points throughout my treatment, I was in a wheelchair. I was able to move around the house freely because of those extra wide hallways. Had we not had those, I wouldn't have been able to just like go to the kitchen sort of thing. You know, like God is in the details with all of it. And
That's so wild.
throughout my whole experience, it was every little thing. God was in it. God was in it. Like the timing of everything. I guess kind of quick synopsis.
Well, I was going to ask a question. Like, were you noticing like these things during the treatment, or was kind of like a thing that you like look back?
Oh, retrospect, 100%. No, like it was definitely like oh, thank God we're at St. Jude, but it was not like the how significant me being at St. Jude was. We did not realize till looking back on it.
Yeah.
Day 15 of treatment, I had what was it called? Appendicitis? No, not appendicitis. Pancreatitis. Sorry, pancreatitis and methotrexate toxicity, which led to seizures. And had I not been at St. Jude, I don't believe I'd be alive today, because the care team was like on it. The response, like I think there were like 40 something people in my room in less than like 3 minutes, and it was quite an experience, needless to say.
I think like one thing that we tend to, and we've talked about this on the pod before, is that we tend to have amnesia for kind of like what you talked about, God being in the details, or just looking back on, man, these situations should not have panned out the way that they did.
Oh yeah.
Like at all.
Yeah.
Like this is literally, I mean, right now when you were telling your story, I'm like getting goosebumps because I'm like, this is insane. But just the miracle of every single detail working out in the way that it is. And when you're going through that situation, you're not thinking about that because it's a detail. It's small. It's not, I mean, you have the massive, what seems like mountain of cancer and you know, having to face the reality of death. I mean, that's a real reality that you don't, I mean, and it's human nature, but you don't look at all the small blessings that were happening that accumulate to the eventual miracle moment. And I think it's just important that, especially when we're in seasons where things seem difficult or things seem hard, to retrospect, to take a moment to reflect on old battles and how you were brought through those.
Oh yeah.
Because if you don't, you'll miss the little miracles that happen in between. And I think there's just a lesson there because that's so important. Because like I said, even me right now, the season I'm in, it's no cancer, but it's a difficult season. I've got, health issues in my family, things of that nature. And it's easy to go like, okay, God's abandoned me.
Oh yeah.
And being reminded that no, the same way he brought me through depression and COVID, and when I was dealing with all the struggles, internally with myself and with my family and things like that nature, and how God brought me through that, you can do that. We have to do that. We constantly have to remind ourselves of the goodness of God, because we don't, we'll become very bleak and very upset, and we won't have gratitude towards the situations we've been brought out of, and we won't have hope for the situations that we may be entering into. So I just wanted to say that.
Oh yeah. I'm a huge believer, like you were talking about. It's really about mindset, and I'm not trying to be like one of those guys like, oh, just don't have depression, dude. Like be happy. That's not what I'm saying at all. But like it's what's the term, the something mindset. It's like
fixed mindset versus growth mindset.
No, it's like not gratuity. Gratuity is not the right word.
Gratitude.
It's like a mindset of thankfulness, I guess is the best way to describe it. There's a word for it. I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's like when you're going through those situations, I wasn't really great at this whenever I first started, but my mom was constantly reminding me of like even though you're in this terrible situation, look at the blessings around you that you have. The God will be evident through the little details in the moment. And again, you don't catch all of them. You can't when you're in your like crisis mode and you're just like trying to get through that. You're gonna miss stuff. And retrospectively, you'll be able to see it more. But when you're in those situations, being thankful for what you do have, even in the midst of the chaos, is huge and is vital for like keeping your head on straight, sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I mentioned last night with my quiet time with the Lord, something I was just open and vulnerable about him was like, God, remind me like you did Joshua. And I think sometimes like we have to get to that point to where we pray like, yo, God, like I'm struggling right now. Like remind me of what you have done in my life. Remind me of the promises that you have spoken over me. You know, like pray like for God to remind you. Because I mean, you know, David encouraged himself in the Lord, right? Yeah. So when we get to those tough seasons and things of that nature, like why can't we do the same? Or why can't we ask the Father who is willing to meet our needs, like remind me, Lord, because I can't do it on my own, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think. It's very much like it's not wrong to feel like everything's just out of control, but leaning into the Lord in those moments kind of, it doesn't give you that control back, but it allows you to feel a sense of peace knowing that it really isn't in your hands.
Yeah.
And like the Lord's plan will happen regardless of what you do.
Yeah. And I think it's good that you brought that up because I was talking to somebody and they were just working through a situation and they were like, well, I know the Lord's going to work it out. I was like, yeah, you don't got to throw a spiritual Band-Aid over it, right? And I think we can tend to do that as Christians, right? You know, toxic positive our way out of negative situations. Like, oh, the Lord is she's gonna move. And it's like, yeah, it's true. But when your mom just died, you don't want to hear that, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not the time to say that because sometimes situations suck. Yeah. Right? Like, I mean, I was talking to my mom because I was just telling her, like, man, I just want to win, right? Because, funny story, the old job I used to have got shut down by Human Services recently. It's just crazy. But I've been looking for an internship, haven't been able to find one, and so I was hoping that I could go work at this old summer job to have it shut down by Human Services. It was like, dang. Like, can I have anything? Kind of situation, right? And so I was talking to my mom about it, and she was like, it's okay to be like, this sucks, right?
Yeah.
To be like, God, this sucks. Like, this is a sucky situation that I'm in. But it's where we go from there that makes or breaks us. Because, don't get me wrong, you could sulk in the situation, right? You could be upset at the negative circumstances, the difficulties that you're going through. You could do that, right? And in some aspects, you're justified, but what is that going to do for you, right? Like, where is that going to lead you towards? Is that going to lead you towards getting out of the season? Or even if it's not even getting out of the season, but having a positive, making the best of the situation experience? Is sulking going to get you there? Or is reminding yourself of how you've gotten out of previous situation, how God has led you through things that were difficult in the past, and how he's blessed you through those negative experiences, dwelling on that is going to get you way farther out of that negative season of your life that you may be in. It's going to get you way more into a hopeful state, right? Because you can move through a negative season of your life being hopeless and sad, or you can move through a negative season of your life being hopeful and glad for what God has already blessed you with. And what sounds more pleasant? And I think it's important to remind ourselves of that because in the moment, it feels so good to just dwell on the boohoo, woe is me, this really sucks. This really sucks. And like I said, don't push that away. Don't pretend you don't feel that. But what are you going to dwell in? What are you going to abide in? Are you going to abide in those negative feelings? Are you going to abide in the gratitude that you can have? And abide in how God has brought you through situations in the past and what's going to lead you towards more hope and more happiness and more joy when walking, more peace when walking through a season. And I think that's important to remember. It's that it's okay to acknowledge, but it's not okay to dwell.
Yeah.
And so I just think that's so powerful. And I want to, once again, zoom back into the story. So you've talked about you get the diagnosis, you have an initial moment of panic, and then you kind of come back to and you begin to just go through the treatment, and there's a lot of little things that are happening that you don't even notice of like the wide halls and being in that range to be taken care by St. Jude. Kind of walk us through now the journey after the diagnosis. You still got that freshman flu?
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit. It's just a mindset, though. It's just mindset. I don't have the freshman flu, actually.
Get out of the mindset.
Yeah. So the type of leukemia I had was ALL type B, and is a 2.5-year treatment. So it was October of 2017 when I was diagnosed. I started the treatment literally the next day. My first chemo was within 48 hours of my suspicion and diagnosis. And then I had a daily chemo regimen and a weekly. So the first 6 months of the treatment were super intense. I lost my hair. I was down to 72 pounds as a 13-year-old. I couldn't walk and stuff like that because I was literally just so weak. Past that 6 months, in that 6 months, sorry, I should say, I got pancreatitis twice. I got methotrexate toxicity, and one of the chemos also like affected my like liver function for a little bit, and which wasn't great. Then past those 6 months, it was 2 years of I went into St. Jude weekly, and I had what's called a sub-Q port, which is like basically something under my skin, and they get a needle every week and they shove it into my chest into the sub-Q port, which that kind of sucked. I still have like a scar from the couple hundred times they had to stick me in my chest. And every week I would go in, get my port accessed, get I can't remember, it was just methotrexate was the type of chemo. And then every day I would have to take a by-mouth chemo. And then there was a certain point through those 2 years, I think the first year of it, every month I would go in and get what's called vincristine, which was a absolutely terrible chemo. It basically like made my sugar, like my blood sugars and stuff like that. My pancreas was already damaged, so at this point I was diabetic and didn't even know it. And this chemo spiked my blood sugars so badly that if I ate anything with carbs, I would I would be like, your normal range I think is like between 70 and 120. I would be at like 400, 500, which there was a point where it was so bad. I went to the hospital and they're like, you should be like in a coma right now. Like what? And it was because of that chemo. It was not fun to deal with.
Jeez.
But there were a lot of dark times in it. I would say I want to just kind of quit, give up, not quit, like end my life, but like end the chemo, even though I wasn't done with it, risk it coming back sort of thing. But my mom was there constantly reminding me, like God is with us in this. And ended up finishing treatment May of 2020, thankfully, which kind of sucked because, dude, we went straight from because of the chemo, I had a compromised immune system, so I had to wear masks since 2017 till 2020. And I got off treatment. I was like, dude, like, yes, I finally get to stop wearing these masks, everything. And then the world shuts down, and everyone has to wear masks for the next 2 years anyway. And I was like, great, 5-year streak of wearing masks, great time. But no, it was really like, it was super cool. Whenever I finished treatment, my neighborhood, they planned it was like a parade, like end of chemo parade for me, where I showed back up home, and I went and took like a nap. My mom woke me up. She's like, come outside. And there was like, I think like 20, 30 people like all lined up. And again, we were all social distancing. We were all being super safe at this point because COVID was such a scary thing. But it was really cool.
That's so cool. Dope, bro.
Dude, that's that story. I mean, it's puts things in perspective, I know, for me, because we all tend to internalize the issues that we have and inflate them to the point where it's like, this is the worst and nobody has it as bad as me. It could be something as minor as I got rejected, right? And we can internalize that and go to a point where like, this is the worst. But and this is not a point to like, you need to compare how bad your problems are to another person's problem. But it does put it in perspective, because even though there's things that are happening in my life that are not going my way and it sucks, I still woke up healthy, right?
Yeah.
And I can praise God for that. And even when you were going through your treatment, there were things that you could still praise God for.
100%.
Right? You're still in your right mind, things of that nature. And so it's not to say, hey, whatever you're going through, it's not valid, right? That's not what it's to say. But it is to say, when you see other people's stories and you see what they've been through, it gives you a whole nother level of gratitude to recognize, hey, man, things may not be going how I want them to, but at least God has blessed me with this, right? Because there's somebody out there who doesn't have that. And that's a blessing in and of itself. And I believe God tailors us each towards battles that we can fight, because there's some things that I can deal with that Bryson may not be able to deal with. There's some things that Bryson can deal with, I can't deal with. Cole, I mean, it's all these things. God tailors our life, right, in the pruning seasons he takes us through for our good and for our ability to be able to walk through them, not on our own strength, but through him. But it is important to remember, man, before I start judging this person, before I start looking at, man, what is she wearing? What is she doing? Or why he acting like, why he's doing this? Let me check their story. Let me see what they have gone through that has led them to that point. Maybe the reason she's so guarded is because she's been hurt by her parents and by her family, and she has trust issues. So get to know her story before you start judging her and saying, oh, she's just she just don't stuck up. She just don't want to be around nobody. Get to know her before you label this person, this young man, as aggressive or something like that. Maybe he didn't have a father, right? So now he feels like he's got to be the man in the household and he's overcompensating. Get to understand people's story, because when you get to understand others' story, you become much more grateful and so much more compassionate when it comes to relating to people and relating to your circumstances.
Yeah.
Real.
And one thing I will say on that is there's a line with it where I countless people would come up to me and be like, what I'm going through right now is not valid because of what you're going through.
Yeah.
And that's also the wrong way to look at it. It's everybody's worst experience is their worst experience.
Ooh.
There's no comparing it, because like if my worst, like if everyone's worst is like a level 100, my level 100 looks different than yours, but it's still like a level 100, right. Like something went wrong in your life. And so it's not that I'm proud that I got through it, but not in like, I'm not trying to be like prideful about it. But like when someone came up to me and they're like, yeah, like I broke like my hip or something like that, but it's like nothing like compared to what you're going through. And I was like, yeah, but that still sucks. Like you broke your hip, dude. Like that's not something to just be like, I mean, it's just a broken hip. Like, no, that sucks. Like I also broke my hip during treatment, so I understand how bad that is. But regardless to say, it's like, you got to be careful about not diminishing your own experiences, because that also diminishes like the way the Lord, or like you're diminishing the way the Lord worked in your life almost, or could potentially work through your story and stuff. And so if you're constantly like, what I went through was really not that bad compared to this person, or my testimony is not as good compared to this person, like that is really diminishing the impact that you could have if you looked at it from a sense of like confidence through the Lord, being like, he brought me through this, even though, but like, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, honestly, bro, that's like something I had to deal with myself recently, because like I've been the, male brain. We see point A, we try and get to point B, right? We're very solution driven, right?
Yeah.
So anytime like I faced any like problem within my life, it's like, okay, Bryson, how can we get over this so quick, right? And then, it translates into adulthood now. So sometimes I may see a person struggling and I'll be like, bro, like in my brain, or even when I'm struggling myself, and come like, oh, it could be worse.
Yeah.
Or it could be worse. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm downplaying the struggle of that person or even myself when, like you said, like, no, like it sucks. So like just dwell in it and not dwell in it, but like sit in this
Acknowledge
moment.
it.
Yeah, acknowledge it
Yeah.
and let the Lord do what He's gonna do, and don't try to like solution your way out of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, we find ourselves, we end up pushing it under the rug,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we talked about this when Destiny was on the pod. When we don't acknowledge the emotions we're feeling, even the negative ones, we push them under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
When we don't acknowledge the positive emotions, we push them under the rug. And eventually that rug gets full. And what you happen is you burst, right? And then the outburst of emotion, you're like, what is this person? Why is he acting all this way? It's because there's been so much emotion that's been compressed that now it's finally blown up. You're not just seeing an outburst of negative emotions. It's positive. It's all these things. It becomes this really gross conglomerate of emotions, and they become emotional. That's because you didn't acknowledge that initial emotion. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging how you feel. Man, this sucks. Man, I'm happy. I'm really proud of how I got through this situation. It's a balanced perspective. And so what we oftentimes find ourselves is we compare a lot, we get insecure a lot, and we find ourselves in this either false humility or false confidence, right? We're saying, oh, what I've been through is way harder than what everyone else has been through, or what I've been through is nothing compared to what this other person's been through. And it's like, kind of like what you said, your worst is your worst, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is the worst you've ever felt. When I worked as a camp counselor, one thing that I would always have to keep in mind when little Johnny and little Taylor would come to me and they would be mad because Johnny knocked over Taylor's sandcastle, right? This is the biggest thing to them.
Yeah.
Like, this is the biggest moment. I may be worrying about how I'm going to do this or do that or finding an internship, and that is the biggest thing to me. But right now to little Johnny and little Taylor, this is the biggest thing for them. And so we have to have compassion. Parents, you need to have compassion to your children. As we become parents, that's something we have to remember, is we have to have compassion, because whatever somebody is facing, that is the biggest thing to them. And your biggest thing may not be their biggest thing, and maybe the consequences of the biggest thing may be different. Like, me looking for an internship is maybe doesn't have the same level of consequence, or not being able to find an internship doesn't have the same amount of consequences as, let's say, Johnny's castle being knocked over. But to them, that is the biggest thing. And we need to have enough humility and enough compassion to recognize that and say, hey, this is not a competition about who has it worse or who has it better. It's about understanding each other's stories and recognizing, man, no matter what, you're still having to move through this tough season. No matter what, I'm still having to move through this tough season. And to acknowledge that, not only for others, but this is still a lesson for ourselves, acknowledging that in ourselves, and then saying, okay, now that I've acknowledged it, now that I've felt these emotions, processed these emotions, now how do I work through them? How do we reach this solution? But a lot of times we like to skip that step over. We like to draw conclusions before we've seen all the evidence. We do that to ourselves and we do that to other people. And what we do is we miss a lot, and we miss that human aspect because we're so focused on, okay, here's the solution here. Oh, okay, this is what she is. Okay, this is how he is. That is not compassion. That's not love.
Yeah.
And I think, man, as we learn, okay, how do we relate to each other? It's important to keep that compassion aspect.
Yeah. It's about how you turn recognition into action. It's
spitting today.
It's you recognize those feelings that you have, and how do you act on them? Whether that's like just dwelling in that sadness and letting that rule your life, or is it turning towards the Lord and being like, all right, like what can I do here?
Yeah.
Like obviously I'm here for a purpose. Like how can I work? Sort of thing. Like
and I think just going back to what both of y'all said, like not comparing pain, I think comparison interrupts the process. And if you don't process your pain, then you dwindle your testimony. Because Cole could have easily got on here and said, yeah, I had leukemia, but I got over it. God is good.
Yeah.
Okay, but nah, like what really happened? He was like, nah, treatment sucked. You know, I went through this. I got down to 72 pounds, but like God was still moving through all of it. Now that hits a lot different than you just saying, "Oh, I was sick and now I'm healed."
Yeah.
You know, it's like if you don't process the pain, then you dwindle your testimony.
Yep.
Dude. And by dwindling your testimony, that is doing a disservice to another person.
Yep.
Like when we're not willing to face the demons, as you will, like the negative parts of our story, the negative parts of our history, and process it thoroughly to the point where we can be like, oh, it wasn't just, oh yeah, I was sad during COVID because I couldn't see my friends. It was like, no, my identity was placed in what I could do for other people and everything that I could accomplish. And when I lost that during COVID, I felt like I was nothing. That hits, like you said, a lot deeper. But not only that, there's somebody behind the screen right now who's going, whoa, he's speaking to me. That's exactly how I feel. I feel that way exactly right now. And DJ, he's been able to work through it. He's been able to, so I can do it too.
Yeah.
When you speak on, you know, it wasn't just, oh, I was sick, I'm good now. I mean, I've had the cold before, and it's not the same level, right? And so if there's somebody behind the screen facing just what seems like a mountain of an illness, you speaking on your mountain and you looking at every edge, every cliff, every part of that mountain and saying, man, this mountain was huge. And there was areas where I was like, man, this sucks, right? And even when climbing up the mountain, this part of this journey that sucked. And you speak to that person who's behind the screen and they're going, wow, they know, they have a understanding of what it feels like right now. And if they got through it, then man, I can get through it. And that shows us, I mean, that shows that other person, man, there's a way. And so when we don't do that, we dwindle our testimony and we do a disservice to another person who God wants to use your story to help heal.
Yeah. And that's what, there was a part of my life where I was like, I wanted to distance myself from being like the cancer kid.
Yeah.
And because for a time, like I was at a church, and I'm not kidding, I would show up like during treatment. People would ask, oh, how's it going? How's treatment going? And I'll go, oh, it's going good. And they go, okay, turn around and not talk to me. Like that was extent. And so that's the level to which I felt seen, I guess. And so I felt like I was like, that's all they see me as. Like I'm gonna stop going to this church. So I like completely disconnected from it, basically, and I just stopped going. Thankfully, I found really good friends that I still have to this day. I'm like actually rooming with one of them right now. But again, they didn't treat me differently because I had leukemia, and I feel like that's also another thing is like, don't treat someone differently based off of their testimony. That's not something like. I understand, like you know, like that is a big part of me, but that's not my identity. And someone's testimony is their story, but their identity is like a son or daughter of Christ.
Yes, sir.
You treat them as such. Don't just like, again, if it's someone who's like got in a really bad car crash, don't always go up to them and be like, so how did it feel flying through the air? Oh, that's crazy. Well, I'll see you next week. Like,
I'll ask you the exact same question.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask you like maybe a slightly variation of like how did the glass feel? Like stuff like that.
There's more to the person.
Oh yeah, 100%. And like you need to look past that one thing you know about them and actually get to know them as a person, especially when it comes to like I know we said don't compare trauma, but like that deeper, like the world altering kind of like. If someone has like had an amputation, maybe they lost a loved one or a kid or something like that, like that's what they get known as. Like you're that person. Like we had a family back when I lived in South Carolina lose a kid, and like as a kid myself, I was like, oh, that's that family that lost a kid.
Yeah.
I never really got to know them. Granted, I was super young, so this is I feel like I get a pass on this one. But I mean, looking at it,
he does. Mommy, why does he only have one eye? Mommy.
Yeah, exactly.
We've all done that.
And you just need to come from a place of like you're talking about, like compassion and understanding, and like realize that there's still a person. It's not. You are not your experiences. You are who God created you to be.
Yeah,
and that's.
And I think it goes back to seeing one thing that I recently read through book of Genesis, and I'd watched this podcast talking about how much of the book of Genesis makes an emphasis that we are the image bearers of God. Like that's a huge emphasis of Genesis, to the point that it's so closely tied to human identity that it can't be taken away. No matter what a person does, it may be a disfigured or tainted version, but it's still at the end of the day an image bearer of God, right? That human person, right? And what we like to do, I was recently on this panel discussion called The Conversation for Freshman Reach. I was blessed to be on that. And one of the questions that was asked is, how do you not use somebody who's part of a minority group, whether it be a person of color, a person part of like the LGBTQIA community, whatever it may be, how do you not use that person as a way to just further your non-racism, non-homophobia, like whatever that may be, right? How do you like not basically make that person someone who
a quota?
Or you ask questions like, okay, what is this? What is that? Right? How does that person? And what we talked about is, what I talked about is recognizing that it's them as a human, right? That they're not a means to an end, right? To become less racist, less homophobic, less whatever, right? Yeah. That they are a human being, right? They're an image bearer of God at the end of the day. No matter how I may feel about their lifestyle, the things that they do, the things I may or may not agree with, right? At the end of the day, they're an image bearer of God, right? And even when we apply that to like a racial context or a diversity context, recognizing they're not just black, they're not just queer, they're not just one character trait, they're a multifaceted person, right? Or even we see, I've seen this a lot, especially when we have people who are in Greek life, right? We had recently a lot of people just came out for Divine Nine fraternities and sororities, and it's very easy to go, oh, this person's an alpha, this person's an AKA, this person's this, that, or that, right? And to the point where they lose all semblance of who they are, except for that's this person, right? And we forget, oh, this person volunteers here, this person's major is this and that, right? They have friends, they have other things a part of their lives. It's not just their fraternity or sorority. This person's a Sigma Chi. Oh, Sigma Chi's act this way or that way. No, people are human beings at the end of the day, and we have to recognize and really value the fact that they're image bearers of God at the end of the day. And so, man, I think that's something that can get lost, because once again, we talked about this on the podcast, that we as human beings like simplicity, right? Yep. We don't like things that are complex. And so the more complex that something becomes, the more we don't want to have to do with it, or the more we want to just simple it, right? Or simplify it. There we go. And so us as a multifaceted human being, we're complex, right? That fraternity is one part of their life, right? But here are 20 other things that they got going on. Oh, that amputation or disability that they have, that's one part of their life, right? But they're a multifaceted person. That skin color that they have, that's one part of their life, but they are a multifaceted person. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so we like to simplify a person and break them down into this one component so that we can easily more understand people, right? And so we talked about this in the sense when we talk about extremism, that extremism is simple because you're right, the other person's wrong, and there's no nuance there. That same way, defining someone as one character trait, that's simple, right? There's no nuance there. But a balanced perspective, a godly perspective, is to recognize them as an image bearer of God, a multifaceted human being. Even Jesus was not just one thing. Yes, he was the Messiah, but he was a carpenter. He was a teacher, right? He was a Jew. He was a multifaceted human being with multiple things that made up who he was, right? Was there the ultimate defining trait? Absolutely, right? And we all have things that are more prevalent in our lives than other things, but at the end of the day, we have to recognize that we're image bearers of God and see each other not as you are this one thing, but you are a collection of experiences. And that, once again, that goes back to needing to understand somebody's story. Because if you meet somebody and you're like, oh, they're black, right? Now I can assign all these other things that I know about black people onto this person and only make that who they are, right? Without getting to know anything about their story. They may have been adopted. They may have been, there's a whole plethora of things that could have happened. But that takes us getting out of ourselves, and that takes us being comfortable with the complex to understand another human being.
That's why I'm pretty careful with whenever I first meet people. I don't usually tell them I had cancer for like a little bit, just so I get to know them first, and then I'll let them know. Like I'll joke about it. I'm very open about it. If you're my friend, like I'm super open about every little bit of my treatment. I'll talk about it all day. But there are times where if someone, all they know about me is that I had cancer, they like look at me with pity. Even today, even though I'm thriving in college, I'm doing great. Like I'm loving life. Like, but even today, they'll like look at me and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, Cole, like that's so terrible for you." And I'm like, "Yeah, it was, but like I'm good now, and like I've grown past that. Like that's not who I am. Like I'm not some like shriveled up cancer kid anymore. I was at one point, 100%. But like people always get that preconceived notion off of the one bit of information they have, and they lock onto that, and like that's all they know about you, and so that's all they will ask about. That's all they'll talk about. That's all if someone asks, "Oh, who's Cole?" They'll be, "Oh, he's a cancer kid." Like I try to avoid that as much as possible.
Is that why you like the Book of Job so much?
I would say, yeah. Like it's a lot of the Book of Job is super like, I'm super bad about memorizing like verses, but just the story of Job and how, God was like, yeah, take everything from him. Why not? Like he's like he'll do fine. He'll do fine. And again, Job had those times where he's upset, but he would never curse the Lord, sort of thing. Like that was it's huge for me. That's my mom always should always be like, remember Job. When I've had those moments of like I felt like so ready to like fight somebody. She's like, remember, like don't get crazy now. Like Lord is with us with this through this situation. Like you'll be fine.
Right.
So like I know specifically like in that story, y'all guys were talking about, like people identifying you with your testimony, identifying you with your pain. Like I know that's one of the things his friends did. Like when they came, they started off good. They sat with him, like didn't say nothing to him for a few days. But then like as soon as they started talking, they didn't ask no questions. They just made straight assumptions. They was like, bro, you must have did something. Yeah. They was like, yo, like, how was your day? You know what I'm saying? Like, how are you feeling right now? Nah, you did something, bro. You fumbled the bag somewhere. And it's like, I like how y'all said it's like, we don't need to do that. That's not a loving approach. It's like, like, oh, okay, Cole, like you from so-and-so, oh, that's what's up. Like there's more to Cole than just, he overcame this thing. Yeah. Cole is a student at Mississippi State. Like you said, you're thriving right now. DJ, okay, like, you know what I'm saying? Like DJ's a kid from Texas, but what about Texas? You know what I'm saying? I'm from Fort Worth. He's not from Dallas, guys. He loves to tell y'all he's from Dallas. Fort Worth. He's from Texas. Fort Worth. But like you wouldn't know he's from Fort Worth if you didn't get to know him more. He just tell people Dallas because like people know what Dallas is. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's the small things. Like we gotta learn, like y'all said, learn to ask questions and learn to listen to people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I was even just like what you brought up is so good is that we're so used to now being one thing that if we're not careful, we can start to adopt that as our only thing. Facts. Right? I mean, I think about it, going back to even like people who are members of fraternities, because that dominates so much of your time and everyone's constantly telling you this is your thing. If you're not careful, you can adopt that as this is my thing. This is the only thing about me. And we have to be careful to speaking against that. And we can even do that with our sin, right? Mm-hmm. We can say, oh, this person, they be out there, they be sleeping around, they be doing this. Now we start to internalize that and adopt that as this is our thing, right? Because we all have sin. We all have things we struggle with. And we as believers have to be better about, hey, we may not agree with how you're living your life here, what you're doing, this and this. This is what the word of God says about this area of life of marriage and how to, treat others with respect and forgiveness and all these things that you may not agree with or you may not like. but we love you no matter what, right? And you're not just this thing, right? You are a multifaceted human being with experiences, with a story. And so not only do we have to be careful of not placing that on ourselves, we have to be careful of not accepting that from other people, right? Not accepting that, oh, you're just this one character trait. Right? There's nothing else about you that it's important. No, young man, young woman behind the screen, you are a image bearer of God. You have a story, and you have something worth of being said that is not just what people say about you. There is a multifaceted personality behind who you are. There's a multifaceted story behind who you are. And so be proud of that. You know, walk in that. Don't let what other people say about you define who you are, right? And I know it's a cheesy thing that people say all the time, but I think it is such an important lesson because we can very quickly do that to other people, and we can very quickly do that to ourselves. Oh, yeah. And I think even going back to what you said, Bryson, is like, we have to be willing and curious about other people's stories because everyone's been so conditioned to, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna just say I'm this, right? Like you said, I naturally tell people I'm from Dallas. I'm not from Dallas. I'm from Fort Worth, which is a pretty large city. But if you're not from Texas, or you're come from a smaller area in like Mississippi or a more rural area of the South, you may not know what Fort Worth is. You may only know what Dallas is. So I'm just gonna tell you Dallas because I don't want to have to go and explain myself, right? But when people are interested in getting to know me, then they find out more stuff about me. Oh, this person's actually from Fort Worth, Texas. Okay, tell me about Fort Worth, Texas. What's the culture that's different about Fort Worth, Texas than it is about Dallas? When we become curious about other people, man, we are able to understand the story and build better relationships. And I think that's a lesson for someone who wants to be a leader or is concerned about building maybe their personal skills or something like that. If you're just curious about another person, you'll build a relationship with them fast. If you're just, oh, I didn't know about that. Tell me about this. Okay, tell me about this. And you ask questions constantly. People love to talk about themselves. That's something my dad used to tell me all the time. So if you can get a person to talk about themselves, they'll think you're a very easy person to talk to, right? They're just talking about themselves. And everybody loves that. Be curious about other people and watch how your personal skills grow. Watch how your leadership skills grow. Because when you're curious about another person, you know where to place them, right? Yep. If I wasn't curious about Travis's graphic design gift, I would have never been like, hey, Bryson, let's ask Travis. Or I don't know which one of us asked Travis. But anyways, you know what I'm saying. Like, let's ask Travis to design a logo. And we already know how the logo would have looked if he hadn't designed it. And so, man, you don't get that. You don't get other people's gifts unless you're curious about who they are. And so, I don't know. That was just a tangent about leadership, but I just want to say that.
One of the examples I always think of was this kind of topic comes up. I always feel so bad is like those one-hit wonders online. Like, y'all remember the yodeling kid from Walmart? Yeah. So he was in Starkville, and he produces music now. But I'm not kidding. If you see him online, this kid's name is Mason Ramsey. If you see him online, everybody's like, "Are you that yodeling kid?" Like, that's all he's known for. And that sounds bad to say. Like, I'm not trying to like pass judgment on this guy, but like I was like, oh, what the heck? I was like, I look at my phone. I was like, oh, Mason Ramsey's going to be in Starkville. And everyone went, who? And I go, the yodeling kid from Walmart. And they're like, oh, that kid? Like, it was like our modern culture, I feel like, is that of this person does this. And that's what they are. Right. And so that's all they can do. Like, I gotta think. But that's a much further to the extreme than a personal level with that kind of subject.
I think about like when it talks about Jesus, him being from Nazareth, I think. But I know he's from Nazareth. I'm trying to remember if this particular story, but I think it is. somebody is telling someone in the Bible about Jesus of Nazareth.
Philip and Nathan.
Yeah, Philip and Nathan. And which one was it? You know it. You tell it, Bryson.
Yeah, so Nathan encountered Jesus. He was like, yo, I'm finna go tell Philip, put Philip on game. And then he was like, Jesus the Nazarene, good dude. And then Philip was like, bro, don't nothing good come out of Nazareth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we do that. You're from Nazareth? Not majorly in it coming from that area. The Messiah coming from there, let's be for real.
Yeah. That's like, like I'm not from Olive Branch. Don't put me with those Olive Branch folk.
Right. And I think, man, it goes back to like we love simplicity, so we love to place identity, sole identity on one thing. And we're not that. We are a conglomerate of things. We are a story. And being curious and getting to know that story, man, Jesus did that, right? He got to know the stories of his disciples. Disciples did that. And it's so powerful and so necessary for leadership is getting to know that person.
It kind of relates back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like people like to kind of make like my situation's the worst. We don't like to think about the complexities of other people's lives. And so when you're like going day to day and like I worked at Chick-fil-A, so I understand this completely. It's like a person would come up to come up to me in the drive-thru. I'd be standing there with my little iPad and they would like just ream me out because their chicken sandwich was like 5 degrees colder than they were promised or something like that. And I was like I understand, like you're like that, this seems like a big thing in your life, but in my life, like I don't deserve that kind of like, or nobody deserves that kind of like attack over any like menial thing. Like everyone's lives are equally as complex. Like I could have just easily turned around and been like, I'm literally going through leukemia treatment right now. Like who are you to criticize me? And then it's like a back and forth. Like it doesn't help anyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kind of a weird tangent, but
I think that's like perfect, bro, because like being real, I think there's so many like misunderstandings about God. It's because we don't have like holy curiosity about him. It's because like somebody may tell you something about God, or you may have like this bad representation of who he is. Okay, well, let there be a holy curiosity. Go find that out about him. You see, like God is more than just this big sovereign ruler, right? He's also a father. He's a friend. He's a healer. He's a provider. So like having that holy curiosity about the Lord can help undo the misconstrued views that we have about him sometimes.
Yeah, people like to look at stuff at face value, even though that face value is created by other people.
Yeah. And even thinking like flipping the situation, that person who got the 5 degrees colder Chick-fil-A sandwich, that could have been the final straw.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. They don't act like this normally. But now, I worked at Whataburger and we had some crazy.
Whataburger.
I remember. Did I tell y'all a story about how somebody ordered
a cheesecake?
A grilled cheese with pickles in it? What?
No.
Nah. That sounds like some Travis stuff.
Why you rush Travis? Yes.
Travis catching strays out here.
Somebody ordered that. Crazy, right? But I don't know their story. Who knows? Maybe their mom used to make that for them every day, right?
Yeah.
And we judge people all of the time, and we don't even realize it. And I feel that like 90% of judgment comes when we don't understand somebody's story.
Oh, yeah.
And so when we learn people's stories, Stuart, he says this. He believes that most people are trying to do the best that they can with what they got. Nobody, for the most part, is doing the worst for the sake of doing the worst, right?
Yeah.
Based off of what the cards they've been dealt in life and how that shaped their perspective of life, that is the reason they behave the way that they behave.
Yep.
If you grew up where you had nothing, right, and one of the few pleasures of life is sex, right? Why would you not be trying to have as much sex as possible, right? That's one of the few pleasures that you got. Every other aspect of life, whether it was not having enough food to eat or this or that, all these negative things, and then you have your perspective warped because you watch your mama grow up. I mean, you watched your mama raise you as a single mom, and all the men in your life also were equally focused on just okay, how can I get my next body or whatever like that, you are going to have that perspective, right? And so I could judge you and be like, I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're acting like this. But who am I to judge? I didn't grow up in your situation, and I don't have the same life circumstances that shaped your perspective.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to be, once again, humble enough and curious enough about another person to get to know that story before we start making judgments about who they are and why they are the way that they are. But man, that's really powerful, man. Like I think that's so beautiful. Well, we actually do got to wrap up pretty soon because my mom actually has been yelling at me because the episodes have been longer than she can doing her walks. She's been like, she liked it when it was 45 minutes. I think she think we.
Sorry, Miss Hardy.
But no, man. I mean, I think, man, that there's so many lessons that just came out of today, and just once again, being compassionate. I think that when you encapsulate it in a word, it's about being compassionate and recognizing that everybody has a story,
and give grace because you don't know that story.
Yeah, and
you need to have that compassion to get to know it.
Yeah, I think one thing that I kind of want to say that round off, it's a bit more comic. For some reason, Instagram has been showing me these like toxic male podcast clips, and I keep liking them because they're just so funny to me that I don't want them to stop.
Do you seriously have feelings?
Like, they are hilarious, and I know that my digital footprint looks horrible right now because it's me liking all these alpha male podcasts. They're like, you need to stop feeling emotions. I like it when women tell me I'm toxic. Like,
if you eat pink fruit, you may as well just be a woman. Like, what?
Like, literally. And there's this one dude who's like, he's the sales coach. He's in the military, or he was he's.
Is that bald guy?
Yeah.
Is it Jock?
Elliot?
Yeah.
My bad. We probably can't say names. I'm tripping.
We're not gonna name call. Well, I mean, everybody knows what we're talking about. I don't care. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I mean, like, listen. I mean, he probably gonna show it to my.
Does he wear the tight pants?
Yeah, the tight pants and the extra small shirt. But anyways, there's this guy, and he be just. There was one clip that was just outrageous. He was like, we don't let anybody who doesn't have a six-pack work for us. And it's just like crazy stuff. Like, if you're fat, like, you cannot be employed. And it's like, you do not understand the story behind each and every individual person. What if, because of illnesses or things that's happened in their life, they're not at an ability where they can work out to the level and intensity that you can, right? Like, what if this person's disabled? What if it's this, that, or the third? Does that mean they don't have a gifting anymore? That means, they're disqualified from being able to do this thing? Some of the best people who are probably salesmen are not rocking six-packs. And they're still great individuals who are still healthy individuals. I had a six-pack in, 11th grade, 12th grade.
But do you have one today?
It was not because I was healthy. It was not. I still have a six-pack, but it doesn't look as defined as it used to. You know why it was so defined? Because I was skinny, really skinny. And it wasn't because I was healthy. It's because all I ate was bad food. And so I had a quick metabolism, so it burned off. But trust and believe, DJ was not healthy.
Yeah.
And when I started to gain weight and gain muscle, my six-pack don't look as defined as it used to. Is that because I'm not disciplined or I'm fat? No, it's not those things. It's just the different circumstances I am in life. And so we have to recognize, man, what works for you may not work for me. Right? I'm not finna be in the gym. There's people in the gym who go, I talked to somebody yesterday in the gym. Shout out Maya. Maya works out every day of the week if she can. That's crazy. I couldn't do that, right? That's me personally. I can't do that. I'm running a podcast. I'm an alumni delegate. I'm an RA. I got a lot of other things going on. My version of discipline looks like 3 to 4 times a week. Does that mean I'm not disciplined? Does it mean I'm unhealthy? No. That's my version of discipline. And so we have to recognize even our own versions of discipline and not assign, okay, this works for me, so it has to work for you.
Yeah, it's like that saying, a comparison is the thief of all joy. It's the same thing of like, you can't compare your level of where you're at to the level of someone who has $1 million to spend on their health and maintain a six pack like year round because that's all they need to do is maintain the six pack and appear confident to earn their money. Like most people don't have the time to maintain a six pack like that. Like that's again, that's unrealistic standard, but we're talking about like not even just like the six pack, like whether that's for like if you can run like a marathon or anything like that. Like me personally, I have not been able to run because of my bad bones and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that I don't have the like I can't have that drive that like an athlete would who does run. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh, I'm unmotivated because I can't run. It's like, no, do you just like swap to what you are good at, what you can do? Yeah. That sort of thing. Like it's a very like, you know, look at your like yourself, your situation, lean into your strengths.
Yeah. Thanks, Bryson. Appreciate that. You got anything?
Very constructive.
Well, as we get ready to close, I want to, of course, give y'all a chance to say anything that y'all may want to add as we get ready to close. Does anyone want to add anything as we end off?
I'm pretty sure my mom is going to be y'all's 700th follower.
Dude, let's go. Shout out Miss Sereika.
As soon as this episode goes out, it's going to be all over my feed.
Let's
my mom.
Go, man.
My grandparents. Dude, that's at least 705 now.
Dude, let's go, man. We're making it up, man. We're
appreciate the exposure, my brother.
Right,
yeah.
You're going to make us famous.
I'm a big influencer, actually, if y'all didn't know that already.
I appreciate it. We need that. We need some more clout for the Young Vagabond.
We need some more clout for the Young Vagabond pod.
So anyways, I want to remind y'all, of course, if you haven't already, to subscribe, comment, like, follow all the socials.
Just like my mom will be doing.
Just like
Miss
his
Sereika
mom will be doing.
All right. All the socials.
All the socials. And... yeah, that's it. That's all I gotta tell you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, that's what I was about to do. But Bryson's ruining my train of thought. Thank you for coming onto this pod, man. We really appreciate just the wisdom that you spoke, man. We're so grateful to have you in our lives. We really appreciate you and just you being willing to share your story. I believe that it'll be beneficial to somebody. And so, man, you're just an amazing dude. I'm so just excited to see how God continues to take you farther and farther in life. And you only being a freshman and seeing how much you've accomplished, man, it's dope. It's dope.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I want to say, go ahead.
I want to say one thing real quick. I had this thought. I actually met you before that thing that you said.
When did we meet?
Remember when? Okay, you probably don't remember, but because you're so chaotic. But that the move-in day, we met at the check-in thing. I introduced myself and I was like, because I seen you all over the stories. I was like, yo, DJ, what's up? Like, my name's Cole, and you were like, oh, what's up, man? And I left. And then we had the conversation later that day, and you were like, oh, it was really good meeting you. And I was like, he thinks this is the first time we met. He doesn't remember.
I'm sorry. I met like hundreds of students that day.
Yeah.
That was Cole's villain origin story.
But see, hey, I didn't know DJ Situation, so I had to give him grace.
Exactly. Dude, already applying the lessons. The only one I remember was Hayden, who have also had on the pod, because I confused his girlfriend as a sister. That's the one I remember.
All right. That was an awkward moment.
You can't forget that. Exactly.
Yeah.
That one's tied very specifically to my memory.
Mine was uneventful.
I mean, it was, like I said, I dapped up and talked to a lot of people that day.
No, yeah, you looked like a deer in the headlights. Like, you were just like, yeah, man, it's great to meet you. Okay, bye.
Probably because, it was stressful. There's a lot going on. But anyways, yes. We're happy to have you, and we're so thankful for you. We have a worship night that starts in 12 minutes, so we're going to get off of here. But thank you guys all for watching. Bryson, do you want to add anything? Okay. Bryson. So what do we say as we get off?
Y'all be blessed. Don't stress. Do less and let God take care of the rest. We out.
I need a bag. How much did these say? I make a banger that got it on replay. Why they talking about